Hello, everybody. It's my great pleasure today to introduce to you a living legend from Ireland, Mr. Francie Conway. Hey, Francie.
Hey, Helmut. It's lovely to see you up here. And
So,
thank you for the invitation. Looking forward to having our chat.
yeah. So, what is Francie a Irish name? I never heard the name. I know Francis, but Francie, I don't
Well,
know.
my birth name is James Francis Conway. And what happens often in Ireland is that they just call you your first. They don't necessarily call you your first name. They can call you your second name. And
Okay.
I was called Francis. And the only time anybody would call me Francis was my mom, basically, when I was in trouble and I would hear her saying, Francis, I knew I was in big trouble.
Yeah.
And over in the west of Ireland, where I grew up, if you're Thomas, you might be called Tommy. If you're James, you might be called Jimmy or Jamie. And if you're Francie, the chances are you're going to be called Francie.
I understand. Okay, cool. Thank you. Well, look, we know.
Sometimes it's handy to have two names, Helmut,
Yes. Francie, we know each other only relatively short. John Griffler from Rebel Gel introduced you to me, and I've enjoyed our connection since then immensely. And especially now, we're going to release a wonderful song of yours together, which is called Peace, Love, and Rock and Roll. Please tell everybody a little bit about the song, how it came together, obviously about David, and so people get a little bit to know the story of you and the song.
Well, David and I go back. David Richards, he's one of the guys up here in the photos behind me. David Richards and I go back to the early 80s when we first met. We were just kind of kids, really, at the Montreux Jazz Festival. And we hit it off very much. And David started, he was the house engineer in Mountain Studio in Montreux. And Claude Nobbs, the founder of the Montreux Festival, had David doing live sound for all the major acts that used to come to Montreux. And they were, for a couple of years, they'd been working on developing the studio. But David was very much the brain behind it, and his reputation started very, very fast, and they started attracting amazing bands to Montreux. Deep Purple were obviously there. Frank Zappa, from the Smoke on the Water song. The Rolling Stones. David worked on the Black and Blue album with the Rolling Stones. I was there in the sessions with him when AC/DC came in the mid-80s. And that was real fun because the guys were writing some songs, and we set up all the gear in the big hall in where the casino is now. And basically we recorded the band live, and the band jammed, and then we gave it all had to be done in real time. I don't know if any of your listeners know what a cassette is, but we had to give a cassette to each member of the band. So basically, I remember giving Brian his cassette, and basically all that was on his cassette was him screaming and scribbling wow, over the top of what the guys were jamming. So they might jam for maybe an hour and 10 minutes. So then they'd each get a cassette of the bass player would get, the drummer, each would get a cassette, and they would go back to their hotel and see within that gibberish, is there any lines or riffs or grooves that they could actually tape? And then the next session was building on that,
Oh, what a great way to do it.
David and I, our friendship grew out of through music, really. And then when I had a hit record with To the Edge of Time, and I had a major signing, and they wanted to remix the record. At that time, a single took 2 years to go out all over Europe, because maybe you'd start in Switzerland, then it would be released in France, then it would be released in Holland, in Norway and Sweden, and a lot of the companies then wanted to put their own covers onto it. They wanted to have their own mixes, you know, and it was just the way it was. But David was booked to do a remix of "To the Edge of Time," which was a big hit for us. So Chris White and John Willoff and I were in Montreux working with David. We also mixed at that time "One Night in Amsterdam," which became a hit after David's involvement. And when we were there, David Bowie arrived to ask David Richards would he like to go out and have dinner. He wanted to have a chat with him. And that night they went for a meal in Montreux. I was delighted because I had a night off for a change, because I mean, you know, working with the guys, it was like very regimental, you know, and I was kind of, you know, I was living in London at the time, and it was nice to have a night off in Switzerland, go out and have a few beers and hang out a bit, you know.
Yeah.
And so I was delighted that we were getting a night off. And the following day, David came in and we said, "How did you get on?" He said, "Oh," he said, "man," he said, "it was really strange." He said, "I arrived into this well-known restaurant in Montreux and there was nobody in there." And he went over by the counter and there was David Bowie was sitting at the counter, and basically he said, "Oh, I'm delighted you got here for dinner." So the two of them sat down, and it turned out David Bowie booked the full restaurant out for 2 hours. So the guys wouldn't have anybody looking over at who the two of them were, because obviously Mr. Bowie was well known, and obviously David Richards was very well known at that stage, you know.
Amazing.
And then David asked David Richards to know would he get involved in the production of the Iggy Pop album, blah, blah, blah. And they only had a certain budget, so David brought in another friend of ours called Erdal Kazalski, another multi-instrumentalist. And the team started from there. And it was wonderful to be there at the beginning of all of this, you know.
Yeah.
And Erdal and I were friends. We've recorded together, and then blah 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 became what it was. Erdal and David continued on working with Bowie. They did Let's Dance. They did the Never Let Me Down album, and then Queen bought Mountain Studio in Montreux with the condition that David Richards would stay to become the fifth member of the band.
Amazing.
You know, and it was magic times, because, you know, even at all these times, I mean, it was all about our love for music, you know. And the pub across the way changed the name of the pub to the Amsterdam because of the hit record One Night in Amsterdam that came from the studio. So it was there was a lot of vibes, and it was very music orientated. And
so how did the song Peace, Love and Rock and Roll, how did it, you wrote the song, or how did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, David and I obviously lost contact, and, you know, David became, you know, he was incredibly busy with Queen. He did all his stuff with Freddie, you know, and then I went off the road for a couple of years for family reasons. And next thing, I got a random phone call around 2009 to know, "Hello, man, got any unfinished songs?" And it was David Richards. And I said, "David, hang on a second, man. I've been out of this crazy business for a while." And he said, "I didn't ask you that." He said, "I asked you, had you any unfinished songs?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I think I might." And he said, "Well, why not come out to Montreux?" And he said, "Everything will be covered. Just come out and enjoy. We'll go into the studio and see if we have any bit of spark of magic like what we used to have. And if nothing happens, there's a lot of our old friends, the Queen family and stuff living around. And we'll just have a good week with visiting people and a few beers and some nice meals and stuff." And that sounded good to me. and we went out. I went out to Montreux, and excuse me, I like to say I went out to Montreux because that comes from the Smoke on the Water song. We all came out to Montreux.
That's right.
Did you get
That's
it?
right. Mm.
Of course. So I went out to Montreux, and David and I, we just started. We were just jamming, just like as if all the years it didn't matter, and it didn't matter, all what happened in between. It was just like two kids just having fun again, playing music together.
Wonderful.
And I had this song that I was working on, and I would call it. I was calling it a kind of a feeder song, because it was a song that that I had written, and that I would play it to somebody, and you could take ideas from the song, and then we could work on the idea, and then
Okay.
I would replace the original song with something else. So then on the next session, I would say, here's a feeder song again, and then we see where we go. Are you with me? So,
I understand.
and it was a song, it was the feeder song. It was about Glastonbury and the praising of rock and roll, because rock and roll made me feel that good. And I felt a connection, and I felt, and we were looking at the things of our life that really mattered, and I remember from the feeder song one evening just saying, what it's all about is peace, love. And I couldn't stop smiling, thinking, will I say it? Rock and roll.
Yeah.
And David just said, hey, man, I think that's our title,
That's the hope.
And, so suddenly now we had an idea of what we wanted to write about. I had some sketches of other feeder songs. So we went off. I was staying in an apartment just at the side of the studio, but we said we were going to bed, but I didn't. I stayed up and continued on going through my stuff, and started because I was buzzing about this thing. So after breakfast the following morning, he said, I think we should start. And I said, yeah, I think let's fucking start here, man. And I just took out the guitar and I said, okay, I did this last night. What do you think? And he went, yeah. And then we started working on just jamming it together. And then we said we needed a bridge. So I said, David, I'll let you write the bridge. So then David came back and played on the piano something like this, like. So it was beginning to kind of go. I was going, hey, David, man, you can take the boy out of the band, but you can't take the band out of the boy. Suddenly, it was like he's all his work and his years with the band and with Freddie were actually coming through in what he was doing.
It definitely come through in the song. When I heard the song the first time, I was hearing Queen,
and then he told me, exactly. And he told me a very good one, because within the band, whenever Jim Beach, the management, used to come to the studio, Jim was very concerned because I loved having hits from Queen. So Freddie reckoned that, when they played in something, Jim's eyes went a little bit this way, they knew they had a hit record,
Yes.
So this day, Jim came up to the studio with his son, Old, and I was a bit too nervous, and I was also afraid I'd start giggling because it's like, if someone says, I remember on tour years ago in Australia, in Canberra, and meeting the minister for the Aborigines, a wonderful man came to meet us in a beautiful Armani suit, dressed immaculately. But I was told, just expect that he won't be wearing shoes and socks.
Mm.
So when somebody tells you something like that, what do you keep looking for? You keep looking at the feet. Whereas if nobody said anything, I possibly, knowing me, I wouldn't have even noticed he didn't have shoes and socks on, So with David, after telling me about Jim, about Miami, that the eyes could go, I thought I better stay out of the studio. And Jim and his son Ole were the first people outside of David and I and his assistant Jewel to actually hear the song. And the eyes were going left, right, and center.
Yeah.
And then I think the song for David and I became something quite special. I think more for David because, like, you know, on his wedding anniversary, rather than doing what other people do, like going out for the day, going for dinner, he went into the studio to do a mix of this song, you know. For New Year's Day, he went in to do a New Year's Day mix. He went in to do a birthday mix, you know. So, I mean, I would get phone calls from David at maybe 7 o'clock in the morning, Irish time. And David was finishing a mix. And we used to say the captain was flying again that night, you know. And it was like this song became just really special for him. And the mix that's going to be relieved through Wolf Entertainment, I have to say, I absolutely adore it. I'm absolutely flabbergasted with the actual mix. I'm so thrilled that it's going to be heard from David and I. And if you and I, Helmut, had not had that chat on that Sunday evening to get to know each other, I would not have gone looking on my phone to see if I have something that I could send to you as a little memento of my connection with Queen. And that's when I found the new version, the mix that we are releasing. And I have to say, I was really emotionally taken back. But then sometimes your emotion and professionalism can get in the way of each other. So the following day, I sent it to Aidan Foley in Master Labs. And I said, can you just please check this? It's only an MP3. I think it's special, but maybe I'm too emotionally attached to make a decision. And then Aidan spent a few days working on the mastering, and what I got back was knocked me for 10, I can just say. And I'm so that it's coming out. You know.
What a great story. What a great story. Look, I'm just really happy to know you and to be part of sharing this amazing song with the world, because as you know, when I heard it the first time, I was like, holy what the hell is that? That's an amazing, amazing song. And then especially when the bridge comes in and the chord changes go, and then when it's bringing in the vocoder in the end to do it's just Queen all over, and it's just such an amazing track. Plus, it just sticks in your ear. So I'm more than excited to share it with the world together with you.
But I mean, for me, it was like, I remember when we were at the stage, we had the backing track down, and I put down some guitars. I put down some 12-string guitar, and I put, but I didn't have an electric guitar with me in Montreux at that time, because I just traveled with one guitar. So David said that he would set up an electric guitar and an amp for me. And I remember thinking, yeah, that's cool. So this recording session the following day, his assistant Jules was setting up the guitar and setting up the amp. And I just said to Jules, I said, I'm quite surprised. I never knew that David was into guitars, you know. I thought it was just drums, keyboards, bass, kind of. I never knew he had the thing with guitars. And Jules said, no, I said, it's not that David's guitar. It's the other David Bowie. He leaves it here. So it's that when he's here, he doesn't have to bring a guitar with him.
So you got to play Bowie's guitars.
So suddenly I was like almost bowing down, kind of, you know. And
to the guitar.
Yes. And And then Jewel, like the volume was turned up, as they said in Spinal Tap, to 11, you know.
Yeah.
And I said to Dave, I said, what do you want me to play, man, you know? And then I could hear it in the cans. And he said, it sounds fucking great. He said, I just want you to hit it. And I said, what? He said, just hit it. He said, at the intro, he said, you hear us building up. And he said, I just want you to whack, whack, just hit the guitar.
Yeah.
So, sure enough, I said, if that's what you want, I said, I've always wanted to do a Pete Townsend, especially in a recording studio. So I'm going to ask you, because you're a musician also. I mean, you know, if you're in a legendary studio, you're
With a
handed
legendary
a guitar,
guitar,
you know, from one of your favorite artists, and you've got one of your favorite producers looking at you and saying, just hit it.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay, what else can you do?
I honestly thought my face was going to explode from just smiling, you know. They call this work. Wow,
Yeah.
you know.
And when the guitar comes in the song, it's like bang, it's like driving it. Unbelievable. There's such a drive there, right there. So that guitar is from David Bowie.
And it nearly blew the bloody head off me inside this. I mean, I understood why Jewel ran out of the playing room. Do you know what I mean? He just left me in there with it. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
And then it was kind of nice, because at the outro of the song, which is something that's special on this mix, I got to play. It's very rarely you get to play a little bit of lead on a 12-string guitar, you know?
Yeah.
And it kind of like, with the title Peace, Love and Rock and Roll, I had this kind of like, you know, going back to San Francisco, down, you know, Haight-Ashbury kind of thing, like, you know, hanging out with the real rockers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wanted that kind of, I thought that kind of feel. But, you know, other mixes where David had put it in, it just didn't work. And now it's kind of like David put this in at the end of the song, and it's just that meandering guitar at the end.
Yes,
and it kind of, you know, and I think, like, he's brief for the intro. I think the guitar really captures an atmosphere at the end of the track, you know, and it kind of puts imagination flowing a little bit, you know. And of course, in the middle of it, I got to play my old Stratocaster here. You know, this is this is the one I've had for many years. It's been many places, so I got to play this on it as well, and that's kind of cool, you know.
Awesome. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that story, Francie. I think there are probably a lot of people really interested to find out how that song came together when they hear it. So now we're going to release
of course, on backing vocals.
Yeah.
Don't forget, we have Chris White and Vivian Bouchera on backing vocals.
From the Zombies.
Yes, and this was actually the first track, because Viv and Chris were very involved in the Hidden Gems album and are very involved in the new projects that I'm doing. And this was the very first song that Viv and Chris actually got involved with David and I.
Oh, wonderful.
You know, and
did you tell them you're releasing it?
Sorry?
Did you tell them that you're releasing that song?
Oh, I did there, and I sent them, of course, the mix straight away. Yeah. They were just really taken back when they heard it, you know. Wonderful. And it was also lovely for them to hear, because David had been telling me the band, like the Queen lads, used to listen to the harmonies from the Zombies.
Oh, wow.
You know, and that's one of the highest compliments that a band can get.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's also why David really wanted the involvement of Chris and Viv into the project, because he
Ah,
knew they were going to bring another element to it. You know what I
I
mean?
see. Yeah. I didn't know where that connection was. It's really interesting to understand how that came about. Very cool.
Yes, that's so. So you see, the whole thing that you're after getting involved in has been intertwined for quite a long time, Alman. You know,
Hmm. I
uh,
tell you what,
uh,
it's an
it's
absolute honor to be part
been
of the release of it.
intertwined
I
in.
I totally love the song, and yeah, I mean, especially now that you tell me the story. What a story! That is, it's got to go into rock magazines for the history books.
Well, I mean, have you got 5 minutes to hear something else?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we have to see that Zoom doesn't switch it off, but 5 minutes or 10 minutes should be okay.
Okay, right. I'll do it very briefly. Uh, the reason that I got out of the business was when my son got sick with meningitis. He was only 2.5, and he ended up in hospital and very, very sick. Fluid went to his brain. He had 8 major brain operations. He was given over on 5 occasions, and basically he was in a coma for months, for many months. But before he went into hospital, before the coma, he used to drive everybody in the house here crazy with playing "We Will Rock You" from Queen 10 times
Yeah,
a day,
yeah.
loud. I was so chuffed that this is my son. He's playing this, like, but it was like, and they say that when someone is in a coma, they know what's going on. So I always had speakers in the hospital, and I played different music that would be played at home. And then after a couple of months, I played "We Will Rock You," and his face changed for the first time. We knew we had made contact. And
Amazing.
then it took a little bit long, but it was only through this song. The following summer, that was just coming up to Christmas. The following summer, Dom Torsch, who you're going to also get to know because he's part of the team. He's the Hammond organ player and piano player on Staycation and many of the tracks on Hidden Gems as well. And Dom invited me and my family to go to Switzerland, that a neighbour and a friend were going away for 3 weeks and we could have their house. And he thought it would be good for the family just to get away and just take the car from the studio, not worry about anything for a couple of weeks. So the day we were leaving, we cut some flowers from the garden, brought them on the flight with us. And when Dom collected us in Geneva, we went down to Montreux, to Freddie's statue, and we put the flowers from our garden to say thank you for "We Will Rock You," for our family to the guys. I showed the lads where the studio was, where we used to play, etc., etc. But we didn't meet anybody. And then a couple of years later, I got this phone call: "You got any unfinished songs, Mike?" And a year later, my son Rory was sitting in Queen's studio with David Richards.
Oh my God. So the song saved him.
Now try and work that one out. I don't know if you believe in synchronicity or not, but try and work that one out. It was all intertwined.
Wonderful. Well, I tell you what, when Peace, Love, and Rock and Roll comes out, I'm so curious how people are going to respond to it. And I can just imagine it can become one of those songs like "We Will Rock You." You know, it is really, for me personally, it's up there with that kind of a song.
Well, wow, that's some. All I can say is thank you. I mean, that's really humbling, and and I want to say thank you from David and I, because I mean David obviously cannot thank you himself, but I know that he's not too far away.
Yeah.
He's up here looking down at me when I'm playing piano and guitar most days, and I know he's not far away. But and again, was it an accident I found this song? I mean,
There are people that say there are no
at this,
accidents.
yes, and at this particular time, the message is good, the meaning is good. You know, it's uplifting. Yeah, I'm just really looking forward to the journey we're going to have with this track. You know.
Yeah. So it's coming out 18th of October, and as far as I understand, you're going to do a video clip for it as well. I'm looking forward to what you're going to come up with for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do something because, yeah, I will for the crack. Yeah, it'll be a bit of fun, you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Francie, for throwing more light at this song and for our little conversation. And I'm going to put this together now and then send it to you and put it all over the internet so people can learn what is behind the story of this wonderful song, Peace, Love, and Rock and Roll.
Here's a recipe for your soul.
All right. Well, again, thanks very much. And I'll speak to you very soon, yeah?
And thank you, Helmut. And thanks to all your team and everybody for the support, for your support from Wolf Entertainment. It's really appreciated. Thank you very much.
It is my great pleasure. I'll speak to you very soon. Bye-bye.
And the world looks grim. Bankers became robbers.